Recording starting now. All right, here we go. Profitability MD. It's Matt Hudgins here with Dave Mulvaney there.
Hey,
MD stands for Matt and Dave. How are you today, Dave?
I'm good. How are you today?
I am doing great. Well, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, Matt, I think I'd like to start out with something I did on my blog post at davidmulvaney.com today was how often when people feel stuck, they get stuck. They're not sure what the next move is. They're not, and they're not really taking steps toward their goals. I think it's based in limitations, and I say that self-imposed limitations, or actually it even is worse. And I'll bring up Albert Einstein. He said it this way: once we accept our limitations, then we can go beyond them. And I think often we hide. There are true limits that exist in life. I mean, there really are. But until we acknowledge that those limits exist, it's impossible to get past them because we don't create a plan. We don't create a methodology. We don't do anything about it. So by not acknowledging that they exist, we actually put ourselves in denial. Is probably the best word for that. So
I like that. I like that.
So and we'll bring it into finances in just a few minutes. What's your spin on that?
Yeah, it's actually great. When you say that, I think of something we call it like a limiting belief. So you got a limiting belief, something that you believe to be true, but it's probably not true. Hey, it never works out for me. This is never going to work. I can never, lose weight. I can never exercise regularly. I can never make $1 million. I call that more like a limiting belief. And so I like what you're saying. You got to acknowledge the problem. I mean, think of Alcoholics Anonymous. First thing you got to do is say you have a problem, and if you have a problem, that's the first thing in any type of treatment. What was interesting was I've heard this term before, talk about limitations and limiting beliefs and stuff like that. And it's funny, I actually read something just this past weekend about this type of stuff. The mindset. This all goes back to the mindset. What you think actually is achievable, you're right either way, right? But two things, like I'm not successful, or I'm not successful as I want to be. And they say, well, you can just add yet. I'm not successful as I want to be yet. I don't have as many clients as I want yet. The other spin on that I heard, I was just reading about this weekend, which was we're always at a state of, we're always trying to improve ourselves, right? Especially you and me, that's kind of our thing. And so I'm always on the way on being something. So I'm on my way to being more successful. I'm on my way to getting more clients. I'm on my way for my business, hitting that high water mark. So I like those limiting beliefs. Instead, you could say yet, I'm not there yet, meaning I'm trying to get there. Or you could say I'm on my way to becoming successful. I'm on my way to becoming a profitable business. So that's what I think of when you mention that. But go ahead. Tell me about.
Well, it's funny. I think, because we're entrepreneurs, we recognize that the limiting belief before it's a limiting belief. I mean, we probably even have our own limiting beliefs. Everyone has them, of course. And actually looking at them makes you already in motion to do something about it. But I think there's a lot of people who they don't look at their limitations. For instance, let's use finances. There's only two reasons that someone would struggle financially. A, they don't make enough income. B, they have too much debt. Okay, those are the two basics of all finances. Okay, so if you don't have debt, you only got to fix one. You need more income. If you have debt, well, you got to increase your income, make a plan to eliminate the debt. Then when the debt's gone, then you need to take a portion of that income and start isolating it so you can buy cash flowing assets. So eventually you have more income. But so that's simple. But then the real question becomes, why are there so many people in this country of ours, unbelievable country, where the opportunities everywhere? Why are there so many people that really don't ever achieve their dreams? And that was the crux of what I was really looking at this morning. I was saying, why is that? And I realized is that they never face the reality that A, if they want to get out of the cycle that they're in, they've got to increase their income, or B, eliminate their debt. and if they don't face that is a limit in their life, then they never have to acknowledge that they're failing at something, and so they don't want to face it. And I think, failing no person is a failure unless they give up. And I think a lot of people will label themselves as a failure if everybody knew they were just successful on the surface. They really are in debt and they don't have enough income and they're living beyond their means and all those things. But admitting it makes you look at it and say, all right, now what am I going to do with it? I have to make a plan. I mean, it always starts with a plan. And I liken it to if you step on a nail, okay, what's the normal reaction is because your foot is in pain, you're going to address the wound, clean it, probably go see a doctor, make sure you're current on all your shots. That's what normal people do because you have pain, right?
Right.
Well, but let's say you try to ignore it. Like now let's put the finances to the side, but if you try to ignore the fact that you just stepped on that nail. Now, there's a few things that could happen. A, it could heal. It could heal just fine, no problems. I mean, that is a possibility. Not a likely possibility, but it is a possibility. B, it could become very infected, and that infection, again, the natural inclination when you have an infection would be to go to the doctor, but let's say you still ignored it. Then the infection could spread to the leg with very real possibilities of not only losing the leg, but potentially losing your life as that infection spreads through the body. So that's the death side, okay? So you can ignore pain until it causes death, if you will.
Right.
Well, I think that's why people don't acknowledge their limits, because there's pain in limitations. And
they're the pain. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, they're ignoring the pain, and that's why I use the step on a nail thing. They're ignoring the pain, and the pain's getting worse. They owe more money, but their income's still not going up at the rate that they're borrowing more. And this happens to business owners and non-business owners. So it's the same thing. They're trying to ignore the pain because if they address the pain, they have to go to the doctor. And when you address the pain, you got to go to the doctor. If you don't address the pain in your finances, you're going to go past the doctor to death, right? Once the death is the bankruptcy, right? So,
right.
So it's easy when you look at the analogy, but from I guess you could say denying pain causes inaction. It's probably, because pain causes action and denying the pain causes inaction. And so that was kind of the crux of my blog post this morning. Don't know how good it is, but
no, I like that.
I think it's a good message.
I think it's a really good message. So I had a meeting this morning talking to another friend of mine and talk about the limiting beliefs. So one of his limiting beliefs literally was we were talking about some other strategies and some ideas, and he's like, yes, but I'm business to business. I don't think that'll work in my industry. You're talking some stuff that's business to consumer. I don't think that'll work in my industry. So his limiting belief right there, which is it won't work in my industry. When a matter of fact, I think that's where the best ideas come from, is you take something from a different industry and you apply it to your own industry. So his limiting belief is he doesn't think it'll work. The truth is, because of that, he wouldn't try it, right? But if you just say, well, okay, I know you don't think it works, but if it did have to work, what would you do? If that's what I'm saying, kind of the yet. I know you don't think it'll work, but if it did have to work, how would you do it?
Well, then the next question would be, how well is what you're doing now working?
Right. Right.
Because now we're acknowledging the pain, because the two causes of financial failure, because this person undoubtedly this client of yours was probably facing the reality. I don't have all my dreams. I don't have all the goals I've ever set. So why is that? A, you need more income. B, you need less debt. If you have no debt, then you need more income. It's a simple math equation, but acknowledging that, hey, this ain't working.
Right.
That requires them first to acknowledge that that's not working. That's knowing that there's a limitation there, like you were just saying. The limiting belief is there. Now we got to acknowledge it, and now we can look at, well, what other things can we do to increase this income? In his case, to get his dreams to come true. And I mean, that's what ultimately, I think a lot of coaches, they make business too complex. I mean, there's complexities. You need leads, but ultimately it boils down to you need profitable sales, and you need more income than your debt, so you can eliminate your debt and eventually build wealth. I mean, it's not complex. So, but the limiting beliefs are often, it's funny. Ray Edwards, who's one of my coaches, great, one of the best copywriters in the country. Ray was on an old podcast I was listening to. He was talking about how sometimes our limiting beliefs are there, and we didn't even put them there. We didn't create those limiting beliefs. Those are beliefs. For instance, people who are racist. They in many cases they grew up in a long line of people that way, and they don't even know why they believe the way they do. But they won't admit that they have that limitation. If they admit it, they can start to look at what their problem is. I mean, that's probably the extreme to use as a limiting belief, but that's a limiting belief, to not think that all humans have the same opportunity, to think that, I mean, all you have to do is look at, what was the scientist's name who had Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, Hawking, Stephen Hawking. I mean, this guy became, one of the best physicists of our age. He could have just rolled over and played dead. I mean, when I look at people like that, I'm like, what right do I have to make excuses if someone like that goes on to do those type of things? And I think as an entrepreneur, I assume that all people would do that. I mean, I talk to you. I assume that, you have no limiting beliefs.
Well, now that would be funny. Well, I'm sure we all have limiting beliefs, just like we all procrastinate. So I will say that. But I guess that would be, so the point would be, if there's something that's not working in your life, you probably have some sort of limiting belief. So if your business isn't where you want it to be, there probably is some sort of a limiting belief. So you're saying step one would be, okay, find an area of your life where something isn't working. Step two would be acknowledge that something's wrong, that it's not working. Okay, what's step three?
Well, once you acknowledge it, step three is going to have to be, all right, we got to look at, now, when I say that, we got to look at this obstacle. An obstacle can be plural, okay, in the case of different types of things. But you got to look at the obstacle and say, okay, now I need to create a plan. And that plan is, I got to get around this obstacle. So does that mean you have all the great ideas to get around the obstacle? Well, no, that's where I believe it's good to seek help. It's good to say, okay, I need more leads, like your client you're saying. I'm a B2B person, and I need help in this area. And to seek out someone who can help them get leads in that area is the right thing to do. But then to seek somebody out and then say, well, wait a minute, I don't think that's going to work for me. Well,
well, you're saying two things there, right? So the first thing you said, something not ideal in your life, then we get a limiting belief. That's probably, you have a limiting belief. Let's figure out the limiting belief is. Let's acknowledge it. Then let's figure out what obstacles are causing that problem. And then we put the plan together, right? So,
correct.
And then I was thinking about our strategic coach, Dan Sullivan, that's one of our
sure.
coaches. And so that's what he always talks about is any obstacle is actually the raw material for the solution itself, right? So whatever problem that is that you're having, other people are having that same problem. And use that as, instead of trying to avoid it, like you were saying, you head it right on and you acknowledge it and you try to figure out a solution, a workaround, because if you have that obstacle, others have that obstacle, but you need that obstacle in order to create the opportunity. It's the raw material that creates the opportunity. So
and then the final step is action. I mean, that's the big one is, okay, now you've got a plan. You can plan all you want. And, that's why there's different types of personalities. Have you ever read Gino Wickman's book? I think it's called Rocket Fuel.
No.
Well, he talks about there's two types of people in a business. There's what he calls integrators, those are the detail people. And then there's visionaries. And all of the great companies, he goes down list. Apple, he goes down, Apple had, Jobs was the visionary, Wozniak was the integrator. He was the guy behind the scenes who would make everything work. And, but all the great companies, you can find that. Well, it's some limitations, like I find when I get bogged down, it's because I'm not an integrator type. I'm a visionary type. Right. Knowing that limitation exists, like you were just saying, is okay. Now here's my plan to implement this, and the plan might be for me like 3 lines but you hand that to somebody, a detail person, they're going to make a 10-page document. And so I think surrounding yourself with good people that can help you create good plans is a key, I think.
Well, it's funny you say that. So going right into the plan part, so Dean Jackson's another one of the guys that I listen to a lot, and we already mentioned Dan Sullivan. They got this podcast called The Joy of Procrastination, and they talk about that exact thing. So let's say we're at our point where I've acknowledged my limiting belief, and I see the obstacles, and now I got to put a plan together, but now I'm procrastinating, and I'm, I don't know where to do, I don't know what to start, I don't know how to do it. And they were talking about, which is exactly what you're talking about, the visionary. We do our 80% concept. Hey, let me just write down, I call it the back of the envelope strategy. Let me just write down on the back of the envelope what this would look like if the problem was solved, what it looks like as a finished result. And that's the 80%. Then you give it to somebody that you were talking about, an implementer that can help make it happen, make it real. I'll make it up, and they can make it real and make it happen. But our job would just be, instead of getting bogged down, I don't know how I'm going to do that. So this guy we were talking about today, we were actually talking about putting together an information guide or a white paper, and then we'll put together an email sequence, and then we'll market it directly to the B2B customers that he wants to market to. Well, I don't know how to write the article. I don't know how to write the emails. I don't know how to get in front of the people. I don't know what message to send. And so it's hilarious. And then I just said, all right, well, here's the 80% concept in action. Tell me, so I could just ask you the same thing, different concept, but it'd be just like this. All right, tell me the 5 biggest mistakes business owners make. And you would go and you would give me your 5 reasons, and I'd say, well, we can have somebody type that up for us.
Yeah.
There it is. We've got a solution.
There's a service called Temi, T-E-M-I, and no, we're not getting an affiliate fee for mentioning them.
Okay.
But they do transcription service for like 5 cents a minute. So you can take an hour video and, what's that, $3?
Right. Really? I didn't know that. Okay.
They'll take that video or the audio and they turn it into text. It's not perfect, and you still have to, read it because it doesn't, audio's not perfect, but it does a great job, and I think it's a great recommendation. Like you just said, if somebody has a problem with writing, there are other methods to write, but the flip side of it is, more than ever, if you look around, mainstream media is struggling. What are the number 1 shows on television or Netflix? Well, for the most part, they're reality.
Okay.
Because people, I believe, reality is more appealing than fiction in a lot of ways. So, and that's why they like reality. Well, that's why people out looking can watch, a podcast like this and say, oh, I just found out that's what I've got. I've got a limiting belief. I need to overcome that limiting belief. That's why I believe every business owner today, I don't care what line of work you're in, you need to be in the media business. That means text, meaning printed media, audio, video, sure, you have to cross all these platforms of social media and all those things, but we're technically a media channel. You're a media channel for your company. Whatever your company is, you're the media channel. And if you don't consider yourself that you're the anchor on the 5 o'clock news on your media channel, you're missing the boat, because you're the best spokesperson you could have for your business. You're the best spokesperson you can have for your products, your services, as long as you can determine, most importantly, how your product or service solves your customer's problem or enhances their life in some way, shape, or form, makes their life better, easier, more simple. Those are the real things. You either solve their problems or you make their life better. And that's why people will buy from you. And don't worry so much about your features and, all the product features. Nobody buys those. When you, like you said, you just bought a new Lexus, right?
Right.
I bet they told you about things on the car that you had. I have a multiple Lexus. Well, I gave one to my daughter. I bought a brand new one at 05. That's now my daughter's. 07, sorry. And my wife has a 2011 that we still have. There are things on that 2011 LS 460 that I don't even know is there.
I don't even know how to operate half the things in my car.
That's what I'm saying. There are so many things.
It's not the benefits and the features. You're exactly right. It solves a problem.
Yeah. So why do I have a smartphone? Well, there are so many features on this thing that I have no idea even exist.
Right.
Sometimes it amazes me. I just learned last week, you ever type a text and you got to go back and get to the, change something because it didn't come out right?
Yeah.
And you end up backspacing or whatever. I don't know what type of phone you have. I have an iPhone. Well, I didn't know how to, I just backspace and delete all that stuff if you hold down the space bar, it lets you move it like a mouse.
I read that myself last week.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm glad I found that out.
I didn't know that last week either.
For 7 or 8 years, I probably had an iPhone. And I just
You've had it for 10 years. It came out in 07. Come on, man. They've been around forever.
I probably have had it. I'm a technology geek. And when I say I'm a technology geek, I'm in 1998 when Windows 98 came out. I was in line at midnight the night it was coming out, and I spent the rest of the night installing it on my computer. So, yeah, I can say that I liked stuff like that. That's cool.
All right, hold on. Let's go back. All right, so we got about 4 more minutes here. Let me kind of wrap it up. And so, talk about give me an example of a limiting belief. Tell me a quick story of a limiting belief and how you help solve it.
Well, I think a major limiting belief in business, there are limiting beliefs. I'm too small, to take on that type of client. Okay, I've actually this was a conversation I had with one of my clients. Is that
yeah.
He couldn't take on a client because the client was so big and would give him so much business that he was concerned whether or not he could extend them terms because they would buy so much that there's no way he could possibly fund their account.
Yeah, he needs more work.
And I said, well, get the business and figure it out.
Right.
Those are, what a problem to have. You got too much business and you just got to figure out how you can fund it for a few months.
So let's go through that exact same thing. So that was they had a limiting belief. He had an opportunity for a huge client. His limiting belief was, gosh, I don't know how I can fund it or because you got to buy the inventory before you can sell it to the guy. And so you're saying, well, there's your obstacle. So now we need to come through a plan to say, well, how can we get that cash flow? Can we borrow money? Because there are many ways to get money, right? There's obviously you've got all kinds of financing options as well as personal and business financing options.
Correct.
Then you put a plan together and say, all right, we're going to go explore these. I would even tell you that you could do the 80% concept, say, all right, I could borrow money from the company, and we could do accounts receivables. I could do a home equity line on my own house. We could have many options, and then we could have somebody else help explore those options for us. There's our plan. And then we would circle back and decide which one to go with. And then your final thing says, we take action. We're going to.
So my advice to him was, if you know you can get the customer, go to the customer and say, we're new in this relationship, and I want to show you how just excellent my service is and how well we're going to service your account. During that period of time, until I've earned your trust 100%, I'm going to bill you when I perform the service, and I'd like to be paid inside of 10 days. And just during that period of time, once we've built enormous trust between each other, then I'll extend you terms. And what that might do is for 90 days, you're getting paid inside of 10 days. Offer them, fair pricing during that period of time to get paid quicker. But why go borrow money when the customer is there and they got money? They wouldn't hire you if they don't have the money. So
I like that solution. There's a good option.
Get the money from the customer. So that was my recommendation. So and that's what he's working on. So
I like it. I was going to say, time to get the client to self-fund you for a period of time.
Correct. So what's a limiting belief that you had or that you are helping somebody with?
No, we go back to this conversation I had this morning. Talk about limiting belief. This won't work for me. This won't work for my company. These won't work for my clients. And I always ask, if I know you don't think it'll work, but if it did have to work, how would we make it work? What would we do? And then you start talking through the options. Exactly what you're talking about in this scenario would be, what are the 5 problems your product solves, or the 5 solutions you're coming up with? And most of us know that stuff off the top of our heads. So let's put it in a more of a question type format, or of a did you know type format. And then I'm all about giving it a try, action. I like what you're talking about, where you give it action, you give it a try, and then we tweak it. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the whole thing about being a business owner, is we can take action and then just tweak it or fix it later. I think people get this analysis paralysis thing and don't do anything. We can just go try to get that big client and figure it out, whether it be offering different terms or arranging some short-term financing or whatever you got to do, but go get the business and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's the advantage of an entrepreneur, is we get to
I think
nothing set in stone.
I think just taking that next step, that action, like you just said, that's the key to get to the finish line. That's why I like exercise. I like running, because there's so much. And my blog tomorrow will be all about all the lessons you can learn by running. And you start out with a plan. Okay, I'm going to go run for an hour or 45 minutes. And then 5 minutes into that, your body's not telling you, no, this is not a good plan. Okay.
That's exactly
Circumstances or your obstacles are now starting to come in and so you're at times, you've set a goal. There's a whole lot of things wrapped up in it. Perhaps we'll have a discussion about it, but ultimately it's one step after another, after, probably from the 20-minute point all the way to the 45 to 60 minutes, just taking that next step, taking action. And then eventually you cross the finish line, and then you have that satisfaction. But along the way, you've had persistence and perseverance and so many things that come into play that when you look at athletics and you look at business, how much they're congruent with each other, and how it feels when you reach the finish line. You've achieved your goal, or you've overcome these obstacles. It's very similar feeling. I feel the same euphoria when I achieve a goal. It's a great feeling.
I like that. Well, that could be that'll be a good one. We can talk about that on our next one. All right. So this one, we started off with a conversation with your blog was on limiting beliefs. So we say, look, this is kind of the path. If we had something's not ideal in our life, we probably have a limiting belief. That'd be step number 2. Acknowledge the limiting belief. Now look at the obstacles and what do we need to overcome. Then we come up with a plan to overcome it. And I would say don't procrastinate over that plan. Do the 80% concept, and at least just write out on a piece of paper or the back of the envelope what it might look like if it was finished and I didn't have this problem. And then the final step is take action. Let's actually take action. And I'll even add that the last step could be adjust. If it doesn't work, we just adjust.
Constantly adjust. I think that's probably that's a step I didn't add, but you're right. Constant adjustment, because you got to tweak. Nothing in business, what works today in business will not work tomorrow. Yeah. If you advertise on Facebook, that's great. Might not work tomorrow.
All right. Tell the guys how they can get in touch with you. Tell us where the blog is.
Easiest way to reach me is davidmulvaney.com. That's easy to find. You can reach me on LinkedIn at David Mulvaney, Twitter, David T. Mulvaney, T as in Thomas. Those are the easiest ways to reach me. So,
perfect. All right. And my stuff, let's see. I got my business coaching website is 10xprofitblueprint.com. 10xprofitblueprint.com. And it's Matt Hudgins, Hudgins, so the same thing over LinkedIn. You can find out over there. Well, good, man. This was good. We'll do it next time.
Okay.
All right. See you.
See you, Matt.